thank all of you for joining us. Oh, hi, everyone. This is Bobby Carlton. I am an immersive tech consultant and contributing writer for VRScout. And on behalf of the AIXR, I wanted to welcome three individuals to this webinar. This is a nomination webinar, so you can all understand and know, what the process is behind us. So I would like to, I'll just kind of let everybody introduce themselves and talk a little bit about themselves before we jump into this. So let's start with Kevin Williams.
Well, thank you very much, Bobby. My name's Kevin Williams, and I'm one of the judges here at the awards. I specialize in the out-of-home entertainment sector. I run something called KWP, who's a consultancy that works with location-based entertainment and theme park and amusement and that type of thing. I also publish the Stinger Report, which is a news service that covers that sector. And I'm lucky enough to have been one of the senior judges for the awards over the years.
Very nice. Michaela, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, all. My name is Michaela Ternasky-Holland. I work as a director, producer, creative strategist for immersive and interactive experiences. And one of my projects called Le Tao was actually nominated last year for the 2020 VR Awards as a VR Film of the Year, alongside of some incredible pieces like Frozen's Myth, Felix and Paul's ISS mission, as well as Gravity VR. And I'm just really excited to be here. I am now actually a board member for a committee member for AIXR, and really just honored to be able to speak a little bit today about the process and about the aspect of being an awardee and a nominee and all that wonderful business. So thanks for having me.
Oh, sure. And thanks for joining us. And Rishi, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, my name is Rishi. I come from this beautiful country called India, the largest population. I am the founder for Klip VR Immersive Technologies, and we are the winners for the Rising VR Company of the Year 2020 from AIXR. The way I look at virtual reality, it's quite emerging, and my specialization and my company's specialization is developing location-based VR for masses at a highly affordable prices itself. So that's from where I come from.
Great. So obviously, when we look at sort of what the VR awards are about, right? And it's from my perspective, and I'm also a judge for the VR awards, is we're always looking for virtual reality experiences that really sort of push the technology a bit further, right? Compared even from what happened last year and the year before, right? We're always looking for something that's going to help, push mass adoption. The more people using virtual reality, the farther we can go with it, and the more we can show how it can be used on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in education, whether it's in training or entertainment or socializing, and especially coming off of COVID, we are starting to see all these individuals and people jumping into virtual reality to sort of socialize and sort of have this sort of normalcy. Do you guys want to respond to that idea? Like, Kevin, do you want to tell me a little bit about sort of what you think where VR is heading because of COVID?
Well, it's the weird thing, here am I representing the out-of-home entertainment sector, and the out-of-home entertainment sector in most places is closed down. But thankfully, that doesn't mean that the business has gone away. And so we're seeing a lot of developers now that have major projects that are coming on stream. In America, some of them have already started up. Here in the UK, where I'm sitting, we're just about to come on stream. And then, of course, in the UAE and in Asia, we already have VR projects that are underway. To go back a little bit to what you're really addressing with your statement, we are looking for not just the best of the best, but also for innovation. And the whole point about innovation is that sometimes it pushes the boundaries a little bit more than some people are used to, but also it needs to be effective. And it's true with education and entertainment and a normal VR game. It's got to be compelling for the audience to want to try.
Oh, I think we may have lost Kevin for, I guess, a brief second there. Rishi, are you online still?
Yes, I am. Very
Okay. You want to maybe kind of jump off of Kevin's statement?
I think Kevin is
Oh,
back.
no, I'm still here.
Oh, you're still okay. All right. We lost you for a moment. Well, Rishi, can I ask you, as a winner, right? As someone who, can you tell us about your experiment, and sort of, your idea when you won, like what that reaction was like?
Well, first of all, honestly speaking, we were not even expecting that we are going to win this award. We nominated it because we believed that we have a very unique concept and that the world should know how we are basically cracking this technology to make sure that we are becomes accessible to a lot of people, even than a less than a cost of a hamburger. Okay, so to say with that. So this was what particular thing was. When we filed our nomination, of course, we have provided with the information and the uniqueness about the concept of how we are taking it to people and what kind of a content we are taking this towards the people and what impact it's going to make on education and the learning of viewers. That was one of the things. And when we won this thing, I mean, to say there was party, for 5 days at our workspace. Every day we were just so excited because looking at the kind of nominations, we were always thinking, oh, we have no chance. But I would say that that was not the case. And I really thank AIXR to deep dive, and all the judges and jury to deep dive into what we had sent as in our submission, and thought we were eligible. And that really impacted us a lot, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting when you mentioned, right, because people will ask me, like, what, when voting, like, what do I look for in a VR experience? And sometimes, right, it doesn't have to be the most cutting edge experience. Like, sometimes it just needs to have impact, right? And it has to have, it has to do something that can sort of encourage change in how we do things. Michaela, you're on the committee. So what does that mean for you, and sort of in the nomination, in that process?
Yeah, so what's amazing is that, I went from someone who's on the outside of AIXR, who created a piece as a creative and a producer, and then that piece was nominated by someone on a committee. So it was awesome because, we had a very small budget experience. We were trying to actually raise funds for a social impact campaign. So we were actually nominated by someone on a committee who saw the work and thought that it should be a part of the VR Awards. It went from a nominee to a finalist, which means it was kind of in the official category within the award ceremony of VR Film of the Year. But based on the fact that I had created this piece with a collaborator, AIXR actually approached me and said, hey, Michaela, we think you would be a really wonderful committee member to kind of give it back. Being a part of the committee at AIXR means you get to nominate sort of the next round of VR award finalists. You also get to sort of sit within AIXR and speak to sort of the future of the XR industry. And that was a huge opportunity. So now that my project has gone through the finalists and it didn't win the award, but it was still an amazing opportunity, I get to give back by nominating a project that I think is deserving this year, to be able to skip sort of the rounds of financial submission process, because the submission process does cost a little bit of money. And by getting nominated by someone on a committee, you actually get to skip that part of the process and get straight into the nomination category bucket. And then from there, we'll choose the finalists. So it's a really cool way of seeing sort of how I think a lot of times when we're looking on the outside in of an industry, you're not really sure how to break in necessarily, but I think AIXR does a really great job of making it a very clear pathway and making it a very sort of incredible way that people can connect to one another, and still have sort of this legitimacy of, here's a great institution, here's an amazing awards ceremony, here's an incredible way of getting your project to be recognized. But also let's think about ways the community can continue to connect with one another and give back to each other as a working ecosystem.
Interesting. So what does that mean? Like, when you're nominated, what happens to your project? Do you see a high, traffic coming towards your, downloads and your website or your marketing? Like, what happens? Like, what are the rippling effects of that, of being nominated?
I think that it's similar to sort of getting first put into the nomination bucket. And at that point, it's not a humongous deal, right? Because you're sort of in this big bucket with a lot of different pieces. But it's really great to be able to have that legitimized stamp of saying, hey, we've been nominated for this category. It's sort of that next step of getting finalist, which is like shortlisted, basically, like they do for the Oscars, where you go from being in the big bucket pool of nominees into the finalist category. That's when you get listed on the website. That's when you get all of the marketing materials, where you really get that big stamp of sort of legitimacy to say, hey, my project is a finalist in VR Awards. Come check out the awards ceremony, find out if we win. And I think as a project creator, it's just a really wonderful way to keep the momentum of the project moving forward. It's also a really great way for people to say, oh, this must be a quality project. Oh, this must be a quality sort of team of people. Because in the XR world, we don't have many institutions that recognize us, right? We do have sort of the PGA, which is an innovation award, which can kind of be very broad. We have the Emmy Innovation Awards, which again can be very broad. So what's great is AIXR is really focused on XR creations, XR companies, XR projects. And so to be able to say like, hey, this is like our Oscar, like this is our international academy. These are the people that are looking across the whole world and saying, here's some of the best that we see. And being able to do that in a emerging industry as a emerging creator does really open up the doors of saying, wow, you know, this project has a lot of really great recognition within the industry. This collaboration seems to have been very positive and potentially could open up larger, better, bigger doors down the line for the next round of funding, for the next project, right. Which I think, as we all know, that's sort of the goal, right? Is to say, I don't want to just win the award. I want to continue my process of creating and building and producing and financially being able to support those endeavors. So sort of like a strategy in a way, but it's really positive because it's a great institution. I've been so excited and happy to be able to collaborate and work with them in a larger way coming into this next year of awards.
Awesome. By the way, if anybody who has any questions, please throw them into the Q&A, and we'll make sure our individuals here get those questions. Rishi, can you tell, like, for your experience, right, and from your perspective, with your experience, how did winning change your goals, and how did it change the vision of where you wanted to be next?
Okay, so
or did it not change?
Okay, I would basically answer this question in two parts. Okay, for us, more than winning, it was participation, which was much more important. The reason for us to look into AIXR was, number one, to get the recognition. Now, of course, we are known for what kind of work we have been doing with a lot of major incubators of technology and animation. But over the last 22 years of my career, I was unable to prepare a brand, which was more in terms of doing a product which has been designed and been planned to deliver. Definitely one part was recognition, and we were not focusing in terms of winning this entire thing. For us, even nomination, getting the experience when you file a nomination, when you start preparing the entire, I would say, the package when you make a submission is a very, very important thing, because it actually opens up your ideas and vision towards it. So the first thing that goes is okay, the nomination process itself is really amazing because you learn a lot when you do that. The second part was when you get into the to an area of finalists, and I would completely agree from Michaela that it is a kind of a stamp of a quality that goes on to you, which you'd actually get as a recognition, which is very, very important. And when you win this particular thing, the world opens up for you. I would say that you get a lot of traction and recognition, not only just from the point of view of funding, but also from the point of view of the consumer trust when you get this level of international branding. Michaela again stole a lot of words from me. I always define AIXR as Oscar of virtual reality. That's the easiest way to tell in my area. Now, another important thing what happens is that I come from India. Now, of course, virtual reality is limited to only very few handful people. I would say that Not even Oculus or HTC is selling these products over here. I mean, the cheapest headset that you find in my country costs you about, $1,200, okay, which does not make any sense, and you cannot support the industry. So from our perspective, it was not only just looking at winning, the importance came up towards those companies and startups who never had a faith to do something in this country for this country and the people of this community, or I would say countries where there's most requirement for education, or bringing these amazing tools that can change the future. That gave a lot of confidence to them as well, that when a company like ours can actually win it, of course they start looking ahead and they start believing in themselves. So I would say that it's not just me that when I won this award as a company, but it is as an overall community and ecosystem for developing countries to come up and give their participation, rather than just waiting and watching, okay, fine. I mean, every person creates a unique product and a unique concept. The only thing that comes around with AIXR is how actually it allows you to package this together and then find a global recognition. So from my perspective, yes, we were excited. We got a new, I would say, lifeline because of the COVID. We were anyways quite depressed in what is going around across the world. But when it came, it was only celebrations for us. Something good had to happen that year, so that happened. So yeah, I can't define my feelings and my expressions in words. I'm sorry, but dictionary does not have these words for me as of now.
But that's a great example of one of the fundamental components, and I apologize if the gremlins in my computer exploded just previously, but the issue is that you have to be in it to win it. And the most important part to consider for a lot of individuals, they may think that, oh no, I haven't got an opportunity to win it. It may be a great idea, but I'm not in the right position. Get nominated, get in there. We all love to see brand new work, and it is essential that we see the latest stuff so we as judges can get our hands on it, can get into the minutiae, and hopefully put you forward for nomination.
You mentioned a good thing there, Kevin. One question I have for you, Kevin, is how important are the supporting materials, right? When you see a nomination, and like how important are those with you making a decision?
I have to break these things down into three components. The first one is the actual experience itself. So it's getting your hands dirty, as it were, into that. But before that process, I have to also go through the categorization, looking at the literature that they supply. And most important is the show reel, the teaser, the video. And that is essential to help me and to help fellow judges understand where this category fits, where this product fits into the category that we're dealing with, and more importantly, what level of engagement is it offering before we then have to spend the arduous amount of time going through the full experience in virtual reality.
Right. So we have a question, and I'll read it to the panelists here. This is from Dylan Brown. We've seen a lot of uplift in the international mindshare for the virtual market projects as winners of the award. Is there any general numerical metrics on how the wider market responds when a company is a finalist or wins? Does anybody want to respond to that question? There's like a two-parter there.
A lot of celebration. When someone wins, a lot of celebration, but a lot of hard work's gone into it. So looking at some of our past winners, especially in my category, it doesn't always mean success, but it means recognition. And that is an important part of what we're trying to do here, which is bringing content to an audience that may miss it.
Right. And the second part is Dylan asked, have you seen more international customers due to being featured at AIXR? If Rishi and Michaela want to maybe respond to that.
So I don't have a company that I got nominated for. It was a project, but I can say that once we were nominated, featured, finalists at AIXR, we definitely got a lot of outreach in our inbox for people who wanted us to apply to their festivals, who wanted us to submit to their own award systems. shortly after we won the AI XR Awards, we were reached out by the Social Impact Media Awards, which we had never even heard of. And they requested that we submit. They gave us a huge percentage off of our submission fee because they had found us through AI XR and they had seen that we had already been a finalist and they had read about the project. And then from there, we actually won the VR Grand Jury Award through SEMA. And if you think about sort of strategy when it comes to projects, and I'm seeing also probably for companies, you want to keep the momentum going. You want to keep the recognition going, because that's going to open up ways for you to be able to say to financiers, hey, this is all the things we've been able to accumulate. These are all the ways we've been able to be recognized. This is also that stamp of legitimacy and stability within the project, within the creators, maybe within the company owners. So that definitely was something that we saw post AIXR. There was sort of two waves. One was when we were announced as finalists, and the second was when we were actually wrapped up at the award ceremony. But on the other hand, we also had to do some work ourselves, right? Like as much as AIXR could tweet about it, as much as AIXR could post about it, we provided them with really visually stunning assets to post and tweet about. We retweeted and reposted those assets. We made sure our community of people who were already aware of the project were also aware that we were a part of AIXR. So it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not just them feeding us. It's also us making sure they're giving us something, and we're also making sure we're putting it out to the world within our own audiences. It would be a shame if AIXR did sort of this work and then you sat back and said like, okay, now I have no more work left to do. The work is always there to do when it comes to outreach and opening doors of opportunity for your company and or your project and or yourself as an independent creator.
Interesting. Rishi was saying, was that the same for you, or was it slightly different?
Well, what I would say that, of course, we didn't have an inflow of customers because ours is we provide VR as a service. But what we found was very unique, that we were flouted with a lot of inquiries and distribution inquiries from all across the developing countries of the way we were doing. Now, somehow we don't publish the overall process everywhere, but the demand just surged quite a lot, and people started looking at what after post-pandemic, and that became a very, very important tool, that a service which does not require a very heavy infrastructure investment or something like that, how that can be utilized within their own communities and areas to go about with this. So this was really amazing. But as I said earlier, the stamp of AIXR was very, very important, because one, it definitely not just creates a trust, but also what happens is that within your own development team, and as a company, when you're creating these unique technologies, it boosts a lot of confidence between the creators itself. I would say from an artist to a tech lead in my company, we all understand that the kind of contribution that went in was amazing, and that really boosted everybody's motive and say, okay, fine, let's get another award, in the next 2 years' time, and we will be we will take the highest category, and that's where we will get on to. So this really helps. It's not just customers. I mean, say customers will automatically come in when they say, but customers are not a part of these larger VR community. It's developers, and our people who come together, which is much more important. Like the way we are sitting today, it's very hard, to find company of all the people around over here, if you are not a part of this process.
Right. Interesting. So kind of jumping to sort of a separate subject, and this is actually another part of the question we have in the chat. So the AIXR, originally when it started off, the VR Awards, was it a physical event, right? And it happened in London, and a black tie event. And of course, when COVID hit, they moved everything into a virtual platform, which makes sense because this is about virtual reality, right? So the question is, did you find that having this event in VR chat increased knowledge of AIXR's VR awards? How did you guys react to knowing that this was moving into virtual reality? Did it make sense to you? What was your initial reaction? And I can ask all three of you.
Well, I think some people expect us to spend all of our lives in virtual reality. I'd like to just widen it a little bit more. The AIXR, the XR in the name, the cross reality or extra reality, depending on which nomenclature you want. It is all embracing of the immersive technology front, and we were forced by COVID to really jump into the medium that we were extolling. And it's an interesting way that once we were in there, we found that the awards worked perfectly well, and even became more inclusive because more people could be brought into the experience than having some people say stuffy black tie event. As a man that likes wearing a suit every now and then, I found it quite invigorating. But also I found the VR chat environment also very inclusive. And one thing that both of our speakers have touched upon, which I'd like to underline, is that it is not just the winning of an award. It is not just the ability to have been picked by your peers. It is also what the AIXR award is achieving, which is stability and creating a structure and an environment for an industry to grow. Some people like to say the growing medium for the plants of our industry to grow. We've started off as a very small Wild West kind of sector, and now we're getting more professional. The enterprise sector, the location-based entertainment sector, as well as the home game sector, are all playing their part to grow this industry. And the technology providers, the investors, and the developers need to see a strong structure that they can support to help grow the next future winners.
Michaela, you want to respond to that? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like agreeing with everything Kevin said. I think that an industry can only feel as stable as the sort of people and the social constructs of institutions can be to like support it, right? Like, the Oscars is a social construct in a way. It's just a group of people getting together and saying we have this certain amount of legitimacy. But because they're a curated type of people, and because they give these sort of large awards, and because there's this big award ceremony, it's a big sort of stamp of recognition and approval for filmmakers, which is a very broad and wide industry. And I think that's the beauty of what AIXR is trying to step in and really do for us, as sort of what Kevin was saying, as the wild, wild industry of what we used to call bleeding technology. Now we're just on or bleeding edge technology. Now we're just on the cutting edge technology. So I like to tell people we've like stopped the blood. And
yeah, I'm always concerned about why we call it the bleeding edge. If you know the history behind that statement, it's a bit icky. But yeah, we're trying to remove the blood. I agree.
Yeah. But I think speaking to a little bit about what AIXR did as far as the pivot, I agree. The ability to be able to say, oh, I don't have to get on a plane to be in the room where it's happening, right? I don't need to be spending, sort of copious amounts of potential funding that I don't have to like stay somewhere that I'm not familiar with, to eat somewhere I'm not familiar with. I think that's really important with like safety and inclusivity. A lot of my work is in social impact and documentary. And so I would have wanted my whole team from the Philippines to be able to have flown out to the UK to be physically there for the event, right? I would have wanted this sort of amazing solidarity of like these countries that came together to create Litau, which was the US and the Philippines, to be able to be represented there. But I know that probably wouldn't have been possible. We could have maybe done a GoFundMe or Indiegogo, and we would have probably tried to make it work, but it would have just taken sort of this intensive amount of spirit and will from the team versus being able to say, hey, if you have a headset, jump into VR chat. If you don't have a headset, jump into the YouTube stream. And I thought that was so cool because like my grandmother and my mother got to watch sort of the award ceremony, and they were really excited about that. And in a way, they got to be in the room where it's happening. And I think that ability that VR gives us to feel present and embodied, if it's really well done, to have exploratory spatial experiences with other people that are socialized, which is something platforms like VR Chat, Social VR, Museum of Other Realities are able to do. I think it's just such an effective way to help us where we are currently not able to travel, not able to move, feel like we're being embodied in the space. So yeah, I think it was a great pivot. And I think that I'm excited to see how they're going to move forward with this year's event, if it'll be hybrid, if what they're cooking up in the kitchen, because I think it's sort of a way of saying virtual events shouldn't go anywhere, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't also safely re-implement the physical aspect of the event either. So those are some of my thoughts.
It's interesting, right? So we talk about, like when you go to Microsoft campus, right? They call everything mixed reality, right? It doesn't matter if it's a VR, AR, but that also includes like, actual reality, right? This idea of the blended environment is a mixed reality of physical and virtual, right? And then Zoom calls and then audio, right? And so it's interesting where this technology is heading, and especially what, with the AIXR's VR awards, how it's sort of helped pushing the technology further and further and further. Rishi, so do you recall your very first VR experience, what that was like, and then how winning the VR awards impacted you, and how has that changed your vision of VR moving forward?
Well, I definitely remember my first VR experience. In fact, my technically speaking, my first VR experience was one of our own products that our team created, and it was a seaport. This experience was being made for training people how to do heavy lifting with cranes and whatnot. I was like completely shocked, and my first reaction was, "Wow!" I mean, we can save a lot of money for a lot of people are investing millions by just using VR. But of course, at that time, VR was, I'm talking 5 years, in the past, and then we had all these sensors and everything. It was like, getting into a future, of VR. So, well, that was one particular point, when I saw this particular product. And of course, we jumped into VR industry just because, we were being told, by one of our client, VR is emerging tech, and would you like to do something in that as an experiment? So we were lucky enough to get that kind of an opportunity. And I'm talking about Oculus DK2, that was like the very first
Oh
version.
yeah.
So that was there. And then it was never looking back, we then started working on various different projects, okay, in terms of entertainment industry and amusement parks, and making content for VR. And of course, we were never the hardware integrators ourselves. Okay, we were just doing content for amusement parks. That was a great experience. The journey was pretty long. We did everything from training combat people to training kids, making solar systems, to even getting into deep of lavas and whatnot. To say that we have gone through this entire process before we actually started doing something that we can say this is our own IPs and that is what we wanted to create. So there was already a lot of experience that went into. But just to answer your question, we are just excited, me with my first experience and my best experience, honestly speaking. I still love doing a lot of stuff on Beat Saber. Okay, but I love it because it's my stress buster. I make sure that at least I'm spending at least, if not, 4 to 5 hours on my weekends. I'm one of those lucky guys who kids do not bother them because they are in a school which is not in my city, which is their way. So I spend a lot of time, just spending in VR itself.
That's great. Kevin, what experience for you? What was your first experience, and how has it changed your view of it moving forward, and looking at what a future nominee could look like for AIXR?
Well, I'm an old bunny, as it were. My first experience was back in the 80s, 1989. I come from a background in both theme parks with Disney, but also in video games and military simulation. A lot of the technology that has led us to this latest phase of adoption of VR. VR has been around with us for quite a long time. Was with a military simulation system made for fighter pilots, and it actually used laser light. So it was shooting laser visual displays through a special helmet. And that was my first immersive experience. And that opened, that was one of those Ready Player One moments, you know, the head explodes, I've seen the future, I run down the street shouting to everybody that doesn't want to listen about how good this technology was. And it's those wow moments that have been like lily pads to me as I've progressed through. I've been lucky enough to progress through this industry. Each wow experience, the wow experience of the first of the CRT head-mounted displays, the first wow of the high-speed computer systems, the first wow of the work that Sony did with the Glasstron that also inspired other companies such as Oculus, and then the wow factor that we have at this moment in time, because I feel that a lot of people have been talking about why hasn't VR exploded under the pandemic. I think it has. It's just that most of us haven't felt the vibrations from the explosion yet. And there are a lot of wow moments going on with the latest technology. I would say that Half-Life Alyx was one of those wow moments for me, to see a AAA VR experience of such quality and such endeavor on such a high level head-mounted display as the Index. But I also think that there's been a wow moment where the availability of this technology for as many people as possible. And that has been brought to us by the Quest 2, but also by what is on the horizon. And I've been lucky enough to have a little bit of a glimpse of some of the systems that are coming towards us. You know, we have some new technology from Apple, we have some new technology from Sony, we even have some new technology from Facebook, away from what they're doing with Oculus, that are going to be our wow moments. And to answer your question in a long-winded way, I'm looking forward to what comes next.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's very, you bring up some great, you know, the evolution of the hardware has been amazing and rapid. I mean, when the Oculus Quest was released and we had tetherless VR, an all-in-one system, and of course, I believe that won the hardware of the year it was released, was a big game changer. Michaela, like, what would you look for in a VR, whether hardware or VR software, sort of to be a winning, you know, a winning entry or nominee? Like if you were
Hardware or software, not a creative project.
how about we say creative project? We'll make it.
I mean, I think an award-winning hardware for me, it would be sort of the ability to think one step beyond where everyone else is. Right now, everyone is focused on the personal devices. And the beauty about XR, or extended realities, as a lot of us have said, I actually like to call it the digital reality. I like to say, like, you know, there's the digital and the physical reality, and they have a communication stream, which is known as XR, right? Like, we communicate the digital reality into the physical world using virtual reality headsets. We also communicate the physical world into the digital reality using augmented reality, right? That's like the way information is traveling between these two realities that we are very familiar with. And even if you have oh, sorry.
I love that, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I think, like, even if you have an email account or an Instagram account, you are a part of our digital reality, right? So a lot of people are focused right now on like devices on the personal body that can extend the communication between the digital and physical reality. But I'm actually interested in, for hardware, specific to hardware, I'm interested about the pieces that can extend into the sector of businesses, not just at the consumer level. So I'm really interested in some of the rumors I'm hearing about augmented reality being embedded into car windshields, right? Because if people are just buying cars that happen to have an augmented reality glass on it, that's a way for them to be exposed to our industry without having to feel like, oh, I'm just buying this weird personal device, right? So there's just like that way of, I think we can continue to think about hardware beyond just the physical human body, and also in the way that the human body explores the world. So there's the hardware that I would sort of be looking for. Software wise, I really think accessibility to creating VR is really important to me as a social impact and documentarian. So I think places and devices that are thinking about abilities to build virtual environments in the same way that Squarespace or Wix or WordPress opened up the door to building websites for people who don't code. Like, can there be a really robust platform that could take not just what Unreal and Unity does really well, but does it in a way that people don't have to feel so overwhelmed by the user interface, even if it's simplistic. I'm thinking for like a journalist, you know, someone who's like, I want to show this immersive environment. Let me grab this 360 photo. Let me put it into this software engine. I know Noni Della Pena and Emblematic have been doing something similar. Once it's in this engine, it's now a 3D rendered environment. And now I can put my green screen video of someone that I've already taken interview of and just lay it all in and then export it as an HTML or export it as a WebXR link, right? So thinking about making this more accessible so more people can be publishing it. Just like when 360 video became supported by YouTube or Vimeo, it'd be great to see more places support WebXR or virtual spatial environment building. So that would be software. And then creative projects. Whew, Michaela, she just went all in. I think for creative projects, for me as a judge, I would definitely be looking at storytelling, because not every story needs to be told using XR. Not every experience needs to be done using XR. It's being really smart and strategizing why XR at the baseline level of the story so that it feels like a holistic package as to how and why I'm either putting on a headset to watch this, bringing out a device to watch this, making sure I'm feeling activated by watching it or exploring it or experiencing it. And I think we tend to lose, I speak for myself even as a creator, we tend to lose that thorough line from beginning to end when we're thinking about a project. Most projects I see have an amazing opening or an incredible ending, but they don't necessarily hold to this idea of like staying true to the medium all the way through and utilizing the medium all the way through. And I think my background also with Disney and with theme parks and with cruise lines, there's something about the way those experiences are designed where from beginning to end, you are in a Disney experience. From beginning to end, you are on a cruise ship. And that to me is something that XR creative projects need to also understand and also try to build in from beginning to end. So that's what I think I would be sort of excited to see and learn about.
Well, that's a great response. We only have a couple minutes, and I wanted to ask Rishi a question. Why should people nominate? Like, you know, what?
That's a very, very good question, I would say. First thing, believe in yourself that you have a great product. You know, never ever try to compare yourself with anybody we don't judge anybody. Okay, and we want people to judge us, you know, what is the value, the true value. That's the number one particular part. The second part is we should nominate if we believe that your product is going to make some kind of an impact on people's life. That is very, very important. Always remember one particular thing that I always I always remember that virtual reality is nothing but, you know, an illusion of our reality that goes ahead in our life. What I'm doing today is because I can dream about it. Virtual reality has that great potential of giving you that imagination, that wings that you can actually fly around with. I mean, imagine, showing a virtual reality of, you know, maybe being an astronaut to a person somewhere in some African or Eastern African country. I'm just saying somebody who does not have resources. His dreams will explode that he want to be that next person in the life to be there. So why one should nominate? One should nominate to create an impact. One should nominate to make sure that this is a community, you know, that grows when we all come together. This is not something as on maturity level like cinema or something that if you have done a movie, you know, ultimately somebody will be buyer. You know, in VR there's nobody buyer. We are users over here. So that's what my feeling is, to make this community strong, to make it come together as one single unit. That's important for us, you know, to come as a part. And if you are into VR industry, no matter what your project is, no matter what the visual quality is, no matter how much impact you're doing, nominate. At least you will come to know what your true value is.
Very and Kevin, Michaela, quickly, why should people nominate?
Ladies first, please.
I think people should nominate because, like Rishi kind of said, it almost casts a spell, it manifests something, right? It creates sort of this environment of the saying, either as someone who could nominate, I'm bringing this forward and I'm putting, some belief into this person or into this company or into this project. And that's a way I'm giving back to when someone gave me that chance of being nominated. But then for someone who's maybe just approaching it at the door level of saying like, well, I just want to nominate myself, that's almost like you're casting a spell. You're saying like, this is something I want to put out into the world. And even if it's not through AIXR, you going through the motions, you manifesting sort of exactly what Rishi said, the copy, the edit, the images will just set you forward so much more for future submissions, for future opportunities. Oh, you suddenly had an email from an investor. Well, you've already created a beautiful portfolio for AIXR. You've already finished that. You just forward that instead of having to worry about what you're going to forward to that potential investor, right? So I would say it's community building, it's self-building, it's vision building. And it's also just a really great community. Like, even if it's not this time, you'll be seen, you'll be recognized in some way, shape, or form by someone at AIXR. It's a really great group of people that run the industry. And I really feel they don't think that anyone really gets left behind.
Awesome. Kevin?
To paraphrase a unique individual, we live in a community, and that community can only grow with the support of all of us together. The reason why you should nominate is that allows you to point towards excellence. The reason why individuals and companies and developers should look towards putting themselves forward is not just for the product that they create or the experiences that they engender, but for the people that they hire and employ to help create these experiences. If we don't grow, we don't grow as an industry. If we don't elect, then we can't achieve the high office that we want to achieve. And this industry is going to be big. It isn't just going to be VR, it isn't just going to be AR, it isn't going to be MR or XR, whatever alphabet soup is invented in the future. We are, as Evans and Sutherland, as Ivor Sutherland, the inventor of most of the technology right at the beginning in the 60s, said, he's creating synthetic reality. And synthetic reality allows all people to use the digital medium to grow. And that's what we're here for.
Well, thank you very much, and that brings us to the end of our time. And of course, I am Bobby Carlton, and I wanted to thank AIXR to let me host and moderate this. And of course, I want to thank our guests Kevin Williams, Michaela Ternasky-Holland, and Rishi Ahuja. And I really appreciate all of you jumping in and listening. And yes, as we've talked about, nominate, get your project nominated and get it out there. And thanks to all for listening, and have a great day.